Hello there friends, it's your boy here with the first episode of All the Mods 3. This is the latest 1.12 pack from those All the Mods dudes, and it pretty much includes all the yeah, that's still not funny. Anyways, I've been trying to make this series for a while now, but something's been really weird with my computer. I don't know what's going on, but everything's just been a bit off. I've been trying to fix it, but at this point I'm just gonna go with it and see what happens. So I'll gather some resources and hopefully nothing crashes or anything. Hopefully. Oogly doogly. So it's been a while, and I think my computer is acting a bit nicer now. But I've been doing a lot of mining in this mesa, and spawn is somewhere over yonder. But all my good stuff is down inside this lush cave, or whatever it's called, I don't really know. But anyways, here's my mining haul, so not a terrible start. Got a ton of gold from the mesa that we're in, obviously. And also, obviously, we want to double all these ores, and to do that, we're going to be using Embers. And Embers is actually pretty cool, because it is a tech mod sort of disguised as a magic mod. So a lot of the core functionality is a lot like tech mods, but it has sort of a magic mod skin. But to do Embers, we are going to need a ton of this Caminite blend. Well, not a ton, but we're going to need a bit of this Caminite blend, and we can smelt that down into Caminite bricks. But normally how you'd start Embers is by making this ancient codex, but that requires a pretty specific mob drop, and unfortunately, my only attempt at getting that was not exactly what most would describe as successful. But do not fret, for I will be serving as your in-game documentation in this video. So let's just grab the rest of these Caminite bricks, and we will turn those into brick blocks, and we actually only need 6 of these, because we're going to turn those into stairs, so we can then make an ember bore, and we are also going to need this mechanical core here. So we need to make a tinker's hammer so we can make some plates, and I'm consciously making plates with 4 ingots because I think it's a little bit imbalanced to be making plates with 1 ingot early game, just my opinion. But anyways, let's make that mechanical core and then the ember bore. And while we're at it, we're actually going to make 2 mechanical cores, because we're going to need another one to get this ember bore working here. Let's make another plate as well, because we're going to need some item pipes. Whoop, that's the wrong thing, don't shift click that. So item pipes are made a bit like that. And these embers pipes, both item and liquid pipes, need extractors in order to work. So we're going to make a few Caminite plates here. 6 seems pretty good. And we will smelt those up. And then with that Caminite plate, we can then make an extractor. Okay, I'm thinking that's all I need to get this ember bore set up. But we do need to go down to bedrock to do so. And lucky for you, I already dug all the way down to bedrock. And in retrospect, this probably was not the best staircase design for descending, but you know what they say, hindsight is 20/20, but we are almost at the bottom, I think. So this is the little room I'm going to set up my ember bore in for now until we get something a bit more permanent, but I will just set it down in the middle of this room. And you'll see that it is a little 3x3, and I also set it up 1 block just because I like the way the blades look. Also, I should say that technically you don't have to go all the way down to bedrock. You can go a little bit above, but for good measure, I went all the way down. So the ember bore is pretty important because it is the way we're going to get the actual fuel source for this mod. So we're going to feed it some fuel and out pops another fuel, I guess. But we're already at a bit of a conundrum because our item extractor cannot actually insert items, which seems sort of logical, but it poses a problem because this center block is the only input and the only output on this whole bore. So we can output items by putting down an extractor, but we can't input any fuel. But to fix that, we made another mechanical core. So by connecting a mechanical core to this center block, it's going to open up more faces for us to actually interact with the bore. And so we can set a hopper down on this side, and then we can put an item extractor on this side with an item pipe, And as I said, extractors cannot insert, so we have to add an extra pipe before we put it into a chest. And also these extractors do need levers to work. But now we can insert coal, and these blades will start a-turning, and then out will pop some ember shards whenever it decides to. But this trick with the mechanical core actually works for a lot of machines or structures in embers, and it's actually pretty important. But now that we've waited a little bit, we've gotten an ember shard and an ember crystal. And these ember crystals also have a random chance at getting mined up by this boar, and this is basically just a compressed version of the ember shard. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to load this up with a bit of coal, and actually one thing to note about the ember boar is that it will eat all the fuel you give to it, and it'll hold it in its own sort of inventory, internal inventory, and it'll use it up eventually. And while that's mining up some ember shards, let's go back up, and we can start making some machines to turn this fuel source of ember shards into an actual usable energy. And so there are a couple of machines we can actually make to do that, but the one we're gonna make is the pressure refinery. So your other option other than the pressure refinery is the ember activator, which is the more basic version of this, but the pressure refinery is actually just more efficient. So it makes a lot more sense to just skip the ember activator and go straight to the pressure refinery because you're gonna get more energy out of your shards. The downside is that the pressure refinery does take just a tiny bit more setup, so we are going to need to make some liquid pipes or fluid pipes, whatever. And then we're also going to need an extractor, and we're actually going to make a couple extractors, one for later. Okay, we are also going to need to make an infinite water source from pressure pipes, or any infinite water source basically. And once this pressure refinery actually generates some ember, we want a place to store that, like a buffer of some sort. So we're going to make a copper cell for that, which is not all too bad. And then we're going to need a way to actually transfer our embers, so that's what ember emitters and ember receptors are for. Alrighty, so to save me from having to walk up and down that godforsaken staircase, I'm just going to set up all my processing up here. So let's go ahead and set down the pressure refinery, and as you may have guessed, we're going to need to give this a bit of water, so we'll set up a fluid extractor and feed this into the bottom here. So all we should have to do is flip this lever, and this thing should fill up with water. Yep, cool. Alright, so now with just a bit of water running in, and if we just feed this into the bottom with a bit of ember shards, we should, yep, get a little puff of flame, and that means that we are generating some ember. Now there is a way to actually tell how much ember are in any of our machines, which is quite useful, and that is with an ember gauge. Actually no, excuse me, it's called an ember dial, I'm sorry. So we grab the ember dial and we throw this onto whatever machine we want to look at, and now we can see that that one ember crystal, or ember shard rather, gave us 600 ember. So by using the pressure refinery, we actually get 1.5 times more ember than we do with the ember activator, which is why I say just skip the ember activator. And also we can get even more ember per ember shard by doing one more optimization, and that's by setting a metal block underneath and then surrounding that metal block with hot blocks. So we're going to use a block of gold right here, and then we're going to place our hot blocks around that gold block, and we only need to place it on the direct sides. We don't need to fill in the corners. And also we could have used fire as our hot block, but lava's a bit easier for me, less noisy. So right now we have 1200 ember, but now if we put in an ember shard, we should get now 1200 instead of 600 per shard. So with the gold block and the lava, that's a total of 3 times more embers than if we were to use the ember activator. Also, if you put in an ember crystal, you're just going to get 6 times the ember that you would from a shard. And also, if you put a different metal block, you may get a different multiplier. There are different tiers of metal blocks, so gold and copper are 2 of the higher ones. There are other metals that do the same thing. I think electrum also does 3 times. Iron does something like 2.625 or something like that. Anyways, enough with the numbers. Let's just set down our copper cell so we can store this ember in there, not a lever. So we need to place an ember receptor down, and then we need to place an ember emitter, and both of these are pretty self-explanatory. I'm actually going to move this receptor right here just to keep things nice and compact. So we need to link these together with the Tinker's Hammer. So shift right click on the receptor and right click on the emitter, and if you did it right, you should hear the anvil sound. And then we need another lever right here, and then the ember should, well, that was weird, should shoot down right into this receptor. So it's 40 ember per sort of burst. And also another thing to note is that these receptors, I keep placing levers. These receptors also store ember, so each of them has an internal buffer of 2000. So if you ever think you're losing ember for some reason, it's probably just going into your receptors. But anyways, now let's get to the actual ore doubling part. So to do that, we are first going to need a melter, which makes a lot of sense. It's going to melt down our ores, but after they get through the melter, we're just going to be left with some molten metal, and to turn those into ingots, we need a stamper. So the stamper has two parts. We have the stamper, just the stamper. I said that like there was something else to say. No, it's just the stamper. And then we also need the stamp base. So we will grab that. And the stamper needs to know what sort of pattern to stamp, so we need to make a bar stamp to let it know that we want to make ingots. Okay, now that we have that, we should be good to go. So let's go ahead and set this up right over here. So let's place down our melter, and then our receptor is going to go on the bottom half of the block, and it does have to go on the bottom half. And if we just hook that up to our copper cell, that should start feeding in some embers. So we are going to need another emitter. Whoops, shift click and then right click and then a lever. And now if we grab this dial here, we should be able to see how much ember our melter actually has. And of course this has to be on the bottom because that's where the ember actually goes. So you can see that has an internal buffer of 8,000 as well. All right, so now if we just grab a hopper, we can feed in some ores. So I have a bit of iron there and that should get melted down. You can see the smoke and theoretically there should be some molten, well, we can't really even see it. Maybe we can. Nope, we definitely cannot. Trust me, there's some molten iron in there. So we need to grab a fluid extractor and extract that right out, and we're going to put that into the stamp base right there. And so we'll go ahead and extract that out. And now we have some molten iron in there. And as I said, we need to have the stamp head, the stamper, whatever, just the plain old stamper up top. And these need to have one block gap in between. We can place the bar stamp straight on that stamper and then just hook up that ember receptor to this copper cell, just like we did before. Now it might seem like we should just hook them up to the same emitter, but one emitter can only go to one receptor. You can't hook up multiple receptors to a single emitter. It just doesn't work like that. Plop that on there and that should then go into the stamper. And now once that gets enough ember, that should, just automatically stamp that out into some ingots. But you see, we sort of have a problem, and that's that these just get flung off into the air. But there is a way to actually prevent that, and actually we're going to use this iron to do so. So the block we need to prevent that is the universal bin, and this thing just sort of acts as a storage. It'll hold up to a stack of any block, and it looks quite nice doing it. But if you place it underneath a lot of machines and embers that sort of fling stuff out into the world, it'll actually automatically output into the universal bin instead of flinging it. Alright, so now whenever this metal gets stamped out, there's no ingot flying into the air. Instead, it's going into this universal bin, and all we're going to do is just extract straight out of there and put it right into a chest. So just an item extractor should do the trick there, and we do need to place down a lever. And in the interest of making this somewhat nice, we're going to put the chest right up there on that level. And also, if you ever have a connection you don't want, you can just right-click with your Tinker's Hammer and it'll take it away. And now all of our ores should end up right in this chest after they get smelted. But it does look like we're actually out of embers. So like those thousands of embers that I had before didn't really last too long, so you can tell that you're going to need a lot of fuel to make all this work. And actually, some areas are more densely packed with ember shards than others, so you'll generate ember shards faster in one place than you will another. And you can actually check how good your area is by making an atmospheric gauge. And the higher up the needle is, the more ember is in the area, so this is actually a pretty good area, so we should be generating embers pretty quickly. So yeah, I'm just going to let the system sort of do its thing and get all of our ores nice and doubled up here. Everything should end up in this chest, and looks like it's pretty smooth sailing from here. All I gotta do is remember to put more fuel into our ember board down there and bring up some shards for our pressure refinery. But while those ores are doubling themselves up, I'm thinking we should go and build a bit more of a permanent base. And I actually want to do that right here in the mesa, not too far away. I'm thinking of building a bit inside the plateau and on top of the plateau. And I'm thinking of going and running with the sort of magical theme that Embers already has. Making a bit of a mystical sort of temple place, and I'm thinking it's going to go right here, so I'll get started on that and we'll see what happens. Okie dokie. So I'm finally done building, and this is what I came up with. It's not quite done yet. I'm gonna put some stuff on either side so it doesn't look so like skinny like it does now. But the basic idea is done. I can't really be bothered. So I wanted to make a temple, and I wanted it to look like it was sort of carved out of the side of this mesa plateau. So I tried to keep a lot of the different hardened clays intact and whatnot. So yeah, just a nice little entrance, bit of an inconvenient pillar to get to the unopenable door, and there's nothing behind here. One step at a time. Eventually we're going to build most of our stuff inside this mountain hill thing, but for now there are just a few more touches I actually want to do to finish off this part of the build. The first thing I want to do is add some like guardrails with these iron trapdoors. So I'm gonna do, I think this is a vanilla trick. Actually, I'm 100% certain it's a vanilla trick where you can power a trapdoor and a piston at the same time. And when you retract the piston, the trapdoor stays powered. And I think that will look pretty nice for some like guardrail sort of things. And with those three in place, I think it looks pretty good. I actually fall off there a lot more than you'd think, so now I have a little child guard here. So the next thing I want to do is some chisels and bits. And we're going to use some chisels and bits with fluid, so we're going to need a, what is this, chiseled fluid bit tank. And so we can set that down and fill that up with some liquid. And once we get our chiseled bit bag, we can right click on this tank and it'll give us the fluid bits of whatever we put in there. So we're going to use these bits to modify this little area here. I want to make the water stick out a little bit more because when you walk in you can't really see the water there. And also I want to add some more decoration to it. So let's actually just get rid of it here. And we will replace it with some of these half-sized cubes of water here. So the nice thing about this chisel and bits water is that you still get the animation, you still get the effect of the water, but you don't have to worry about it flowing everywhere. And also I can now put some decoration behind this a lot closer than I would be able to otherwise. So I have some vegetation, we have some of these vine garlands I've been putting around, as well as some leaves, and we'll put down a flower pot and some vines, and I think that looks pretty nice. So now whenever you walk in here, it should be a lot easier to see the water, and there's some nice vegetation behind it. Also, I added a rim of marble and some marble up there to replace these stairs and trapdoors because I did like the way that looked. And normally I do try and avoid using chisels and bits a lot in my builds because I don't want to fall down the rabbit hole of just chiseling and bitting everything. I used it a little bit up there and a little bit on the roof up here, but I think in moderation like this, it does make some nice detail work. So this place is looking pretty good, but I do want to get rid of all these random torches laying around, and I want to replace them with some lamps. So we're going to need to go to the Nether, and to do that, we're going to do some Tinker's Construct. Now I don't want to bore you too much with Tinker's Construct progression because I know you guys have been there and done that. So we're going to go pretty quick here. And of course we're going to first make a bit of grout that we're going to smelt into some seared bricks. And then we can start making the materials for our smeltery because I do want some metal tool parts here. So we'll make the casting table, a drain. That was a faucet, not a drain. We will get the controller, and then we're also going to need to make a tank, like so. And then we'll just turn the rest of these into bricks. I think I am gonna need some more bricks, so I will wait on those. And then we can go ahead and make the part building supply things. So we're gonna make a pattern chest, a tool station. We need a part builder, or no, that's a stencil table, and then we need a part builder, there we go. And I think that should be just about all we need. So I guess I'll place this stuff down over here. And yes, I know that I just built that big temple building and I'm still living in a cave, but I really cannot be bothered right now. So I think the only tool we're actually going to be making right now is a pickaxe. So we're going to get the pickaxe head pattern, as well as a rod and a binding. And I just snagged a bucket of lava so we can go ahead and finish up our smeltery, which I guess we'll put right over here. So we're gonna make a nice 3x3 because I think that's a pretty good size and I think I have enough bricks for it. And then to finish off, we will just place down our controller, our tank, and our drain, and then set down the table right there with a faucet right above. Alright, so we will put the lava in the tank, and I'm going to go ahead and get some gold smelting because I know that I want, as I said before, some metal parts. Okay, don't do the dirt. So we're going to need some part casts in order to get those, and we are also going to need some, at least, stone parts as well. So we'll make the tool rod and the pickaxe head, so we can then put them into our casting table and pour some of that gold over them, and we get our part casts. So we'll set those down in there for now, and I'll go ahead and get the metals I want for those smelting. So for the head, we're going to use iron, and for the rod, we're going to use copper. So iron is just a pretty decent material to make a tool out of. It's not too inaccessible, decent durability, yada yada yada. The copper is actually really nice because it's going to synergize well with a modifier we're going to put on our tool. Copper gives you the well-established trait, which makes it so whenever you break blocks, you get some XP. And so that will be valuable later on. Also, it's a pretty decent handle. It's got a completely average handle modifier and durability, so it's completely inoffensive as a handle. So we can go ahead and pour those out and let those cool, and then we can go over and actually make our tool. So I'm also going to be using a paper binding. So there we have it. It's not too amazing, only 260 durability, but we do have that well established that we really want. And so we will start putting some modifiers on that now. So I'm going to be putting a diamond, some redstone, and some lapis on this pig to start off. The redstone is going to give me a lot higher mining speed, so it goes from 6 to 12.5 with 1 level of haste on there. And then lapis gives you fortune. Looks like I'm not quite at maxed out there. I'm going to grab some more real quick. There we go, that'll max it out at luck 1 there. And then when you put a diamond on, it's going to increase the durability by 500 and give you a pretty general stat increase all across the board. So the attack goes up, the mining speed goes up a little bit, but importantly the mining level goes up. And it'll go up 1 from the base that it was before. So mine started at diamond and it's going to go to obsidian, which is quite useful for a person trying to mine obsidian. And then the last modifier that I was talking about before is going to require a bit of mossy cobblestone, which we turn into a moss ball or a ball of moss. And if we right click that on a bookshelf, it'll take 10 levels and give us mending moss. So mending moss is essentially Tinker's Construct's mending version. So whenever we break blocks with our pickaxe, sometimes they will drop XP even if we're just breaking stone. We'll pick up that XP and that'll get stored inside of our tool. And as long as the tool is in our hotbar or in our hand, it'll slowly gain durability over time. So it's not instant like vanilla mending is, but it's still essentially infinite durability when you have well established on there. So that's pretty sweet. We basically have infinite durability tools as long as we're getting enough XP. That can also mine obsidian, so I'm gonna go mine some obsidian really quick. And something to note about this pack in particular is that your tools will level up as you use them, and once they level up they get an extra modifier. So even if you don't go with the paper binding or paper tool part to get the extra modifier, eventually you'll get one, and I think you can get a ton more as time goes on. But that's not in just regular Tinker's Construct, that's an add-on. And another thing is that if you put multiple levels of mending moss on your tool, then you'll just be able to store more XP. But I'm not sure if that actually means it will repair your tool any faster. I don't think it does, but I guess we can hope. Anyways, let's just go on through and end up in the worst nether spawn ever. Or maybe it's the best. We're very safe, at least. And there's quartz. Well, I made it out pretty easily, but the only glowstone I see is, of course, right above all the lava. Oh well, some things you gotta work for. That was actually a strangely peaceful nether trip. Normally things go a lot worse than that. But now I can make those light sources that I wanted to make in the first place. So we're gonna need a couple paper blocks, and then we'll turn those into some glow paper. And I think this stuff will look pretty good. It'll blend in nicely. So we'll put one there. Yeah, I like the way that looks. We'll probably put one down in here to make that glow a little bit. I was even thinking of replacing this itself with glow paper. Oh yeah, I like that. So this whole area is lit up and nothing can spawn here. I'm okay with the torches out front because I actually like the way these look. Maybe not these specifically, but these two on the end are nice and I can put up with this. So I think that's this build done for now. We're obviously going to expand this and actually move in and make a base in here eventually, but that's a lot of work. So much work, in fact, that I think I'm gonna end the episode here. We got a little bit done, not too shabby. In the next episode, we will work on our little structure a bit more, hopefully, and hopefully get a bit more geared out. But for now, I want to thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you all next time. Goodbye.
Fresh off the plane, konnichiwa, bitches turn around another plane, my passport on pivot, asked for it, I did it, that asshole done did it, talked it, then he lived it, spit it, then he shit it, I don't need right tears, I might bounce ideas, but only I could come up with some shit like this, I done played the underdog.